Oh, hello. If you're an event organizer or someone who's ever found themselves standing around at a concert or social event, adrift in a sea of people and felt a sinking sense of disappointment, a feeling of meaninglessness in that show, maybe you were expecting some kind of incredible life affirming experience that would leave you feeling rejuvenated, a sense of community, connection, whatever. But instead of a soul full of yummy feel goods, you came to feel like nameless cattle to be milked by event organizers, or my experience of going to Disney World. Hi, I'm a talking head named Tony, and I opened and ran a venue in the burbs of Chicago called Cairo for 17 years. And now I review books on event planning for my own personal meaning and as part of a project called Event Charm that I'll go into at the very end. This is Pyra Parker's book, The Art of Gathering, and not to be confused with a nerdy card game or a gaggle of juggalos. No, The Art of Gathering dives deeper into the questions of what makes events transformational and what makes them suck. She doesn't go into concert planning, so I will be. And I'll be providing examples of how to apply her perspectives onto your show if you're an event organizer or whatever. Because I believe that her insights will reframe how you think of all human gatherings and not just humans, bears, cats. And if you act now by smashing that like button, I'll throw in any of our primate cousins for free. Now, the live music industry is rich with its own nuance and social dynamics, motivations, stresses, and competitive considerations. Parker isn't from the live music world and probably has never lost her ass on a show with prima donna headliners, record labels, or running a venue. But it's important to get different perspectives on human motivations in social settings so that way we all can up our game. She's founded an organization called Thrive Labs, which contracts with private corporations, public institutions, and philanthropists, fancy people, with their important social things. And in the book, she cites many examples of all that social stuff and all the fancy things running with large and small budgets for the elite. She studied organizational design at MIT, public policy at Harvard, and social thought at the University of Virginia. So that's who she is. So let's get into it. For me, the most significant mindset change of value for music hosts is that category is not purpose. And they may sound confusing at first because what is category? What is purpose? What are words? Category in general being the genre of the event, birthday party, dubstep, rock show, and organizers being content with like the purpose being just that. It's a dubstep show without thinking, why go to that dubstep show and not any other dubstep show happening that night or anything else. So to give their show meaning, good show organizers fall in this thing where they bitterly compete against each other and rely solely on star power alone. That, yeah, star power will give your show meaning. And if you pick the right one, but paying for expensive headliners isn't the only way to pique an audience's interest. There are plenty of times where a legit underground show will be packed with relatively unknown artists if there's buzz in the community about that show and the fear of missing out. Parker cites the Japanese tea ceremony concept of one meeting and of one meeting, not meaning, one meeting, one moment in your life that will never happen again. That it's up to the organizers to dig deeper into what that profound purpose behind that meeting is and what would cause their audience to feel like they're going to miss out if they don't go. Here are a few examples of purpose in events that I've come up with. Now, an example for a band of purpose would be maybe launching a new song or a new album and then creating a show that purpose is to excite the community and to get people to recognize the band's new direction. You can fill out the bill of the band and the rest of the lineup that way. You can create artwork that validates that new direction. You could, create posts and prime that new direction. But like the purpose of it, the community will see as valid is like, okay, this band is going in this new direction, and that the purpose of this is to celebrate and to like come together to understanding to be in the world of this new album. Another example of defining a purpose before a concert hosting company would be to put on a series of shows featuring rare international artists and bringing them to local market with the purpose of highlighting to booking companies and to the community their boldness and professionality. So that way they can book better shows in the future. Another purpose could be for something like of a highlight for the band or musician where you have you have a new album and it's an album release party. And you don't just do the album and just perform it on stage, but you introduce new artwork. You introduce a show that has t-shirts and other things that pull your your fan base into this new world that this album better represents. So you line up the bill, with other bands that connect with that new vision for what the album is. Well, moving on, gaining by subtraction. Just don't be everything to everyone. The event's purpose, its rules, and the lineup, venue, everything should create a magical alternate world with a specific intended audience, thereby excluding some people. In the hunt for a share of the market music scene, you should ask counterintuitively, what does your event refuse to be? And hopefully it refuses to be something that would exclude some people. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a robust mix of musical influences in your lineup. In fact, it's probably preferred when it's done well, like when Ice Cube did Riot Fest. But the artist lineup needs to reflect the taste of the intended audience, just like the people at Riot Fest, all being middle-aged guys like myself. Ice Cube makes sense for Riot Fest. But make purpose your bouncer and what goes in to your gathering and what stays out. That the design of the event should naturally leave some people feeling, this isn't for me. Certain groups have shared values and experiences when brought together create a certain magic out of the event. Next would be priming your guests to get their delicious juices going good and early. Their food now. The 90% rule to a successful event is in the 90% of it being prepped for the event. And part of those preparations includes priming. Priming starts at the very moment your guest has come to find out that the event is happening. How they figure that out and how they heard of it is part of that experience. It is a chance to shape their journey into the gathering, Parker says. When your mindset is that of your guest, then every aspect of the event's experience, and not just the stated official event hours at the venue, are part of the experience. Priming helps the guest imagine what they will need to do for the show. It helps frame the social contract of what's expected of them as guests, which goes a long way into creating the world of the event. Back to me pretending to read off a piece of paper. One of the things is doing a checklist of your events. So that way, you can send a message out there. People know what the hell to think of your show. Stating what the local food vendors are and the people that you're employing for the show. Asking guests to bring something. Easy call to action to prime the pump. Social media posts that spur dialogue of any kind. Anything to... I know that some of the examples are a bit cringy, but big things coming, or you won't believe what we booked, or... what are you wearing to the show? Or pick up your tickets early. Tier 1 tickets almost gone. Starting conversations again with guests and on social media. Just, it's a good thing to do. Responding to those on the threads, keeping the conversation going. Adding fuel to the fire. Just prime. Just gotta pump. You gotta pump your friends. Photos of the production companies and call outs to the people that are doing the show. So if you hired a big fancy sound company or lighting people or even the sound people at the venue or the venue itself or really anything, just make posts about the goddamn event before you post, before you just have it. You don't just create the event and just hope the best like some folks do. You just kind of all right, in a Facebook event page, then that's it. Posting rules about the event in advance, so that way people aren't surprised when they get there. People appreciate a good rule, like party till you drop, or don't drink the water in Mexico, or don't trust anybody over 30. Food specials or options, pretty much anything. Anything to prime the pump. Prime and prime often. Prime your eyes out. Another major point that Parker stresses is to not advocate your role as host of your show. Parker cites working with many hosts that do not want to be personally involved with their own event for being considered too authoritarian. That, like most show producers, after the party or the event is booked, advertised, and staffed, that it's basically up to the guests to create their own experience and their own sense of like wonder in the world of their own night. In the context of a personal party, that would be a really odd thing to do, unless you're my friends who all give me the slip as soon as I get to the show, get to their house, I mean. But for event producers, becoming invisible and uninvolved has become kind of the expected norm, that they book the show and here you are, watch the show and then get out. That, like, it's understandable that hosts would advocate that role and get lost in the weeds and stresses of the back end of a large production. I say that as a former venue owner who also organized many events, that there is so much that needs to be juggled and juggled well to be profitable and to pull off a successful show that's actually faithful to the intended purpose, and creating a vision and then sticking to that vision. That it takes the right size room, the appropriate venue, the right artist, promotion, marketing, purpose, unexpected environmental factors, the appropriate execution of all of those things to pull off everything that'll go into a guesting over overall experience. Parker's background does seem to be more in private and corporate events, but those principles still apply to events and concerts. That guests come there with an expectation of a world that maybe you've created with your imagery, that when you don't create that world and more or less just take their money, leaves them feeling disillusioned, and they'll remember that in subtle ways. And I don't expect, a mega band like System of a Down, even though it'd be nice if they were just at the front gates giving everyone a cool high five on the way in. But at least not, have your security treat your guests as the other and make them feel like possible criminals on, their way in from the cold. This next section hits close to home because it's about venues and picking the right one for the sake of your purpose of your event, because the right venue will set the stage for the event. The history of the place, the size of the space, the location, the town, all have qualities that go into the show. Pick the right size venue for the right size crowd. Parker supports clearly defined party rules or pledges because they help reinforce the purpose of the event and help create a unique experience that's part of the world building aspect behind events. Dress codes, strict door times, passwords, cleaning requirements, or other special etiquette all work because they exclude people who would otherwise hinder the purpose and or the experience of the event and would be a drag on the collective. Rules should be posted well in advance as part of the priming process and understood by guests before the event. Pledges are odd because making people say things before they walk in is an odd thing, but it could be a good way to get people to prime them in the purpose of the event that they're about to walk in on. So like a security guard telling people, hey, read that sign. It just says, don't be a dingus, treat everyone super extra good, or that consent and sex isn't optional, and no way that any person is too fucked up on drugs can give consent, yada, yada. These rules may seem weird and alienating to some, as Parker explains, but modern culture really doesn't share any common social etiquette like that we all, count on. And establishing pop-up rules create an imaginary transient world that is actually more playful than your everyday gathering. Pop-up rules don't limit the guests. They free the guests to the experience of this new world that is freshly unique from our everyday one. I took my bandana off in case you were wondering. Guests need to be seen. Americans report unusually high levels of feelings of loneliness and alienation. And sadly, researchers are finding more and more that the trends have gotten worse post-pandemic. Concerts and events are a way for attendees to attempt to feel connected to some community or a tribe, which in my opinion is the main motivator on why most individuals feel the need to attend certain shows. This is especially pronounced in the electronic music industry, but also in metal and hip hop and in punk. my friends are all going to the show, and my mom or my boss says I need to do adult stuff, and I can't go to every goddamn thing that ever gets posted on Facebook, and I'm going to see it tomorrow that all my friends went and posted all these photos, and oh man, that would have been so cool. Logistically, it's impossible. And it'd be weird for hosts of large-scale events to connect with every single guest, but there are ways to bridge that. And it's up to hosts to set up things for guests to do and to connect, like carnivals or art galleries or vendors or just attractions where guests can interact and engage with other humans at the event. In my native religion of Coptic Christianity, there's a ritual where the guy with the big hat tells us to look at each other and bless each other with a holy kiss, where basically you lean over to the person next to you and you clap your hands with them, and then you kiss your own hands and not them. That'd be weird. May and Parker say that, you don't need to look to religion for how to put on a good show, but there's inspiration in lots of different ways out in the world, and hosts are going to need to be creative on how to bridge the gap, because in our modern world, like, we hardly know who our neighbors are, let alone feel that we're actually part of a general community. And the amount of isolation that we all live in our modern Monday through Friday overworked lives, like, that's why putting on a good show and having people connect is so incredibly important, that people have given you their time of day, and to have them be greeted by some hard-nosed, no-nonsense security guard when they're walking in on the cold is incredibly rude. An event MC is another way to give your event voice and to connect people. They do this by setting pace and by bringing the attendees together and onto one common fold, and to build rapport and to prime the acts of the event they're about to perform, and to set expectations and to set challenges for the room, or even just to explain logistics. The MC represents the voice of the event in that way, from the perspective of the host, of the guests, and their own perspective. They're sort of the avatar of your event. How you launch your event matters. A great launch sets the tone to capture the latent energy of the room by setting up the stage production with instructions to have your opening artists start off strong. We've all been to shows where the opening performing artists have their sound levels cut, inadequate visuals, just less production, and are treated like the crappy appetizers to the main course. So dare they not upstage the headliner? And I get it. You want to leave a little wow, a little extra gas, a little more volume knob for your main headliner, because that's the main reason why people pay the ticket. But it's sort of a waste for everyone's time, and it's you squander the talent and musicianship and like wonder of these headlining or these like opening artists by not giving them the chance to like perform well for the crowd. You should start and end with purpose. Now it's time to define your event's end. Usually the headliner will provide some grand finale that caps the night for sure, but so much more can be planned to prepare guests to enter the outside world of the world that you've created. The goal is to end on a note that seals the meaning of the event, connecting one last time. Of course, this application still varies on the genre and the format and your vision of the show, but don't just stick a bunch of logistical, hey, this is where you need to park or how you need to leave, or just thanking people on their way out. Here's some quick ideas on how to cap that. I'm going to go back to reading that. Taking a selfie with your guests with one big room. We've all seen that where the band takes a selfie with like the big crowd behind them. It's usually a power move for the band, so that way they can show how many people they were able to drag out. Having a performer or organizer on the stage, do the bow. Classic bow. People like bows. An MC can synthesize the night and tell a joke and in reference to how the night went. Summarizing the night. He is the avatar, of course. Everyone's singing along to some random song that had nothing to do with the event, and it's just left field. That's always fun. Something from the 80s. Rick Astley, Rickroll people on the way out. People love that. Goodbye pledge, something that reaffirms everyone's beliefs and how they should handle each other on the way. Maybe something that says that you should treat women good. You should, treat women good. Or hand people a bracelet or some kind of commemorative thing that lets them know that they were at this event. I went to Lambeau Field and they gave me a headband with a Packers logo on it, something like that. We've arrived at the end of the video. This is that whole book. This is my first video, so I thank you for watching it. Parker does recognize that most gatherings are hosted by people who are very hands-off after you get in. And even though she doesn't really discuss concerts, the Art of Gathering really does provide an insightful guidance on how to better orient the host's vision towards ruling the event graciously for their guests. That the music scene has suffered and will continue to suffer more shows that feel generic and meaningless. But hopefully this video, based on Parker's insights, can inspire you to clearly define your purpose and how you can't be everything to everyone, and to be mindfully exclusive towards your show, and how to prime with purpose and what even success means to you beyond just making a buck.